their best. Change accelerators, says Isabel, come in all shapes and forms. They are professionals, they are shamans, business leaders, philosophers, artists, community leaders. And Isabel has chosen, she says, to focus on educators, yippee, young people and women. So it would not be exaggerating to say that Isabel is a core change accelerator. Sorry, let me just click this off my screen. So Isabel will be talking to us today about her sustainability mindset principles that she's developed. And these came out of studying business leaders who championed corporate initiatives that have had a positive impact on the environment and the community. So this sparked the creation of a working group on sustainability mindset for PRIME. And for those of you that don't know PRIME, PRIME is the Principles of Responsible Management Education, a United Nations and higher education initiative that our very own Dr. Jonathan Lowe in the business school is the chair of the UK and Ireland chapter. So it's very close to our hearts. And the Sustainability Mindset Group, I've just updated my numbers with Isabel. It's a group of educators from 57 different countries. There are over 250 academics promoting sustainability mindsets with their students in multiple different higher education settings. So Isabel is also the author of numerous academic papers and 11 books. And I will give you some of the titles because some of them are just really helpful. Stop Teaching is one. The Sustainability Mindset Principles, a guide for educators to shape a better world. And her most recent book has just been published, We Need to Talk About Sustainability. So Isabel is also a poet, and her warmth and creativity are an absolute honor to share with you all today. Isabel, over to you.
Thank you very much. Always a little bit too long, but it's okay. Thank you, Kathy, very much. I'm very excited and thankful to be with you all today. And I want to start with reading a little piece to you. And this is not a visualization, but I invite you to get comfortable and close your eyes so that you are more focused on what you're listening. It's about a minute of my read. So get comfortable, and that is an exercise of imagination. Imagine for a moment a world where cities have become peaceful and serene because cars and buses are very quiet. Vehicles exhaust only water vapor, and parks and greenways have replaced unnecessary freeways. OPEC has ceased to function because the price of oil has fallen to $5 a barrel. Even so, there are a few buyers for it because cheaper and better ways now exist to get the services once were provided by oil. Living standards for all people have dramatically improved, particularly for the poor and those in developing countries. And voluntary unemployment no longer exists. Houses, even low-income housing units, can pay part of their mortgages cost by the energy they produce. There are few, if any, active landfills. Worldwide forest cover is increasing. Dams are being dismantled. Atmospheric CO2 levels are decreasing for the first time in 200 years, and effluent water leaving factories is cleaner than the water coming in to them. Industrialized countries have reduced resource use by 80% while improving quality of life. Unions, businesses, environmentalists, universities, and government work together to create just transitions for workers as society phases out coal, nuclear energy, and oil. In communities and towns, churches, schools, corporations, and labor groups promote the new living wage social contract as the least expensive way to ensure the growth and preservation of valuable social capital. So I invite you to write into the chat a word about how you feel in this moment after listening to this fragment. Just one word. We created a nice atmosphere, isn't it? Thank you very much. Keep posting it. I think this is a beautiful reservoir and start for our session. I will go into screen share mode. There you go. So what I want to share with you today is some reflections about this question: what is the sustainability mindset and why does it matter? And just by the way, what I read to you is adapted from the chapter 1 of Natural Capitalism, which is a pretty old book already by Lovins and Paul Hawken. And I adapted it a little bit. I really liked it because it connected when I first heard it with an event many years ago, maybe 2015 or so. I was in New York at a big event at the UN, and there was a speaker, and she was the dean of the Lausanne Business School of Lausanne, and she started asking us all to close their eyes. But she said, imagine a world where things are like you always dreamt of. And how is it to wake up? What do you see? What do you feel, etc.? So she left us thinking that. For me, it was traumatic because I already was working in the area of sustainability and I was not able to come up with a single image. I said, what does this work? And I was so focused on all the problems, the challenges, on this. My head and my heart were so full with all these big challenges that I was not able to think in my mind, what would it look like? So it was shocking for me because I said, if I cannot imagine it, I am working in this. What about others? And if we cannot imagine it, how can we ever shape it if we don't even think what it looks like and cannot connect emotionally with that as a goal? Since then, I think we are lucky that we have the SDGs as a charter, as a framework that shows us and states a number of goals. But even so, sometimes those goals are just words and we don't connect personally with it. So I invite you to keep that on your mind. Do you have enough images of what is it, this word that we are creating? So, but you are educators, and the word of the students has climate disasters and our word too, but we are educating them to be the best they can be in this world. And there are new regulations, there's greenwashing, there's artificial intelligence, there's polarization, right and left, there's war, there are new moral standards emerging, there's a wealth gap, there's species extinction, and we have the sample of how everything can change in a short time and paralyze the world through the experience of COVID. And in mid of all that, I was thinking, where are the students? And from my perspective, the experience that I had, they are revisioning their values. They're thinking, why are we doing this? And wait a moment, what are the values that this all was built on? They're reviewing it. They also are very aware of the urgency. And some of them are activists, or maybe their smaller siblings are the activists in schools, or maybe their parents are new activists, like nurses that never were activists going to the street. So this is, I put it here in the middle because that is really what we have to work on. This is the external circle. Yes, that's the context, but this is our point of leverage. These and others, but these three things in the middle. So the question is, what mindset got us here to these problems that we are facing? And I created a little list a few days ago. Well, short-term focus, definitely thinking of nature as an infinite provider of resources, prioritizing financial resources, returns, definitely. A lot of unawareness, a lot of, well, I'm not intentionally doing harm, but now that you say it, actually, I need to think of that. Stakeholder consideration, we think maybe on the closest stakeholders, maybe our neighbors when we're making a decision, or our community, maybe who is the regulator that will fine us if we do one thing or the other, maybe if we are in a business, our clients. But what about the next generation? What about the next 7 generations? What about nature as a stakeholder that doesn't have a voice like ours? Fragmenting the problems, which means that we cannot always see how one thing impacts the other. A lot of linear thinking, because that gives us a sense of control. Dream, plan, act. Sounds very linear. And then comes life that changes all our plans, right? But we feel comfort and certainty through the linear thinking. Rational thinking, gets the priority, right? We have to be rational, we have to be logical, we have to try to avoid being too emotional when we're talking about something, right? And we have all heard that a lot. Fear of risks, well, let's stay with what we know, because we know our risk. If we go in uncharted territories, what does it feel like? Speed. Definitely speed. It's a mantra of our time. We have to do things fast. If we don't do it, someone else will. And we have to act fast. And the demands and the tasks for every day are more and more, although we have more technology that should help us do things faster. But as a result, we get more things to do. I once had this image of emails like in a tennis court, no? We get an email, we throw it back. But if you speed it up, the faster they come, the faster we have to respond, like in a squash court. And what is the toll that it has not only on our health, but also on our discernment, when we need to reflect what are the implications of our decisions every day. We cannot do that when we are in haste, when we have to do it quickly. Siloed thinking, also a disconnect from our personal values and sense of purpose, which connects with the automated behaviors, right? When we have to go fast, we put out our automated reactions on, because that's where we get done things fast. If we have to rush out of the house in the morning, we can think in the evening, okay, I only have half hour, so while I put on the coffee, then I take my shower, then I got the keys, and everything has to go very fast. I don't have time to think, like, oh, what should I have for breakfast? No, we have to go into the automated mode, because that's more efficient, not always effective. And that is where we don't have time to think, why am I doing this anyway? And when we disconnect from our values and our purpose, the disconnection is not only in the behaviors and the implications and the unintended impact, but also it's an internal disconnect. I always was very curious when I moved to the US to find that there is a restaurant chain called Thanks God It's Friday. And I said, how would you call a restaurant like that? What is it talking? What is it saying about how people feel about their work? And I bet it's a good expression of this disconnect from our values and purpose, because when I love what I'm doing, it's not thanks God it's Friday. So, but this is taken for granted so much that there is a chain of restaurants called that way. Materialistic thinking, right? When we get more, we need to get more and bigger, and obviously prioritizing financial returns. So what this sort of list of thinking is what brings us back to what a sustainability mindset looks like and what can it be. And when we are teaching sustainability or trying to address this topic, very much it's in this external column where individual aspects or collective aspects. From the individual side, we think about behaviors. What are the new habits that we can have for sustainability? What are initiatives that others are doing? How can we lead, or what are other benchmarks? Also, at the collective level, what are the new regulations? Do we have to report an ESG next year, this year? What are some solutions that the technology is bringing? What are institutions doing? This is the general focus about sustainability, particularly in educational institutions. And what we will be talking today is the internal column, where at the individual level, it is about our beliefs, our values, our personal sense of mission or purpose, or what is what are the anchors of my identity? What makes me who I am? What makes me feel me? Is it what I have? Is it my profession? What is it? At the collective level, what are the collective assumptions? Or also the collective worldviews that we share, and that's the way it is. And when it is shared by a group, a community, or globally, that's the way things are. For example, speak. That's the way we are, and I hear that all the time. Well, what do you want me to do? To go slower? I cannot. That's how the world is today. So we take it for granted, and we adapt to it. But as long as we are adapted and taking it for granted, we cannot step back and think, is this really what we want? Is this what is bringing the best out of me? Is it that the way that I am bringing my gifts to the world to shape a better world and to take care of all the things that I listed in the previous slide? So that's what I am trying to think with you today. How do we address this internal column? And the definition of the sustainability mindset, that the operational definition here, is a way of thinking and being, a particular way of thinking and being that predisposes individuals to act for the good of the planet and the people. And why is this important? I like this image of the iceberg because we all know what sank the Titanic. It was not the iceberg that was floating that they thought they could go around. It was the big mass under the surface that they couldn't see. And in that sense, I like to use the analogy of the mindset at this big thing under the surface, which is conditioning and creating our behaviors and our reactions without us always being intentional, without always us saying, oh yes, I want to do it that way. Sometimes it's so automatic. And that is what calls for a different pedagogic approach also, what I call the contemplative pedagogy. Because we have to contemplate, we have to ponder, what is going on here? There are no shortcuts for this. We have to go inside, we go to do a little scuba diving in this cold water and see what is under there. So based on this research that Kati was mentioning, where I wanted to understand why certain business leaders champion sustainability initiatives and if there was something that we could intentionally develop, I found a number of elements that I call the sustainability mindset principles. There are 12 now. And they fall into 4 content areas: the ecological worldview, the systems perspective, the emotional, and the spiritual intelligence. And in each of these content areas, there are a few of these principles. For example, ecoliteracy. Ecoliteracy is not so much about knowing what is going on there, but having a broad view of all the things that are happening out there. We don't have to necessarily go deep because we want a broad scope so that we see like a map, like a Google map, where we can see the totally of the terrain. Then we can zoom in, but see what the terrain looks like. And more importantly, there is a power in connecting with emotions. So much of the information that now more and more of us have about what is going on the planet still keeps the head isolated from the feelings, like we have a steel plate here that keeps it separate. And we have to unlock the feelings. We have to bring the feelings into the conversation, because the fuel for engaging in actions comes from our emotions. When we are emotionally connected with the topic, I say emotion gets us into motion. Right now we have a passion, we want to do something about it. If it is just a figure that I know, a statistic, yeah, too bad. Yeah, I understand it. I'm not connected with it emotionally, and therefore the fuel is missing. I may do it because I have to, but that is very different from being from the inside out, a passion about, I really want to do something about it. I cannot not do it. That is something that I heard so many times from the people that I interviewed. When I knew that and I was connecting it with, oh my God, am I part of this? But I'm not a bad person, and we are part of this. And with my decisions and my company, are we creating this? Oh my God, we need to do something. I cannot be the only one knowing this. I need to talk to others. I cannot not do something. That is the passion. My contribution is another very powerful principle. And it's so simple. It's just asking, I wonder how am I part of the problem? How am I contributing to this? And I say it's powerful because it's empowering. We are, or like in this slide that I showed you a moment ago, there are a lot of things going out there, and we say, well, that's the corporations, that's the regulators. They are not doing their work fast enough. Why are they not banning plastic? Why are we still using plastic bags in the supermarkets here a mile from where I live? Why are they not doing something? Why are they? And I feel so helpless because they are not doing their job, whether it's the government, the politicians, the corporations, the G8, whoever it is, they all are not doing their job. And the way to get out of that powerlessness is saying, I wonder how am I contributing to the problem? How am I part of the problem? Well, let me think. Did I just get a new sofa that I really didn't need? Why did I do that? What did I do with the old sofa? Oh my God, what was I thinking? And I'm teaching sustainability now. I feel horrible. You know what? Let me rethink what we were thinking about doing in the other room. I don't think we should do that. Now, that is a painful moment because we are looking ourselves in the mirror, but this is also the start of the agency, because that discomfort, this cognitive dissonance, that's not who I want to be. Okay, what will I do now? Let me see. It's not going to happen to me today again. Maybe tomorrow I forget, but today, let me see what I can do. So by seeing which are the moments where I'm part of the problem, that really it's empowering me, because with the problems that we have now, they are so big, and everybody has a role to play, and many roles to play, besides our profession, right? In the personal level, in our personal decisions, but also in our professions. How are we doing, or what are we not doing for what we are saying or what we are not saying? These are many different ways where we can be part of the problem, and maybe we don't want to be part of the problem, and there are simple ways to address that. So very empowering is my contribution. So that in the systems perspective, there are 4 principles: long-term thinking, and we we all know that short-term thinking is the mantra of the day. However, we see now we are living the consequences of too much focus on the short-term thinking. So it's not an either or. It is how do we bring the long-term thinking into our day-to-day as a habit of mind, so that when we are making a decision, we are saying, oh, I wonder what would this look like? What is the impact in the long term? And the long term could be 6 months from now, right? Or could be in next year, or could be 7 generations. Doesn't matter, it's contextual. We will find what is the long term in each case. But just the habit of thinking, I wonder, what will be the impacts? That will help us balance this natural short-term thinking that everything is mandating around us with the long-term approach. Flowing in cycles, nature doesn't work in linear ways. There are cycles of birth, growth, maturation, decline, new birth. How am I living this flow? How am I in tune with nature? Or do I think that with my dream plan act, I can manage the world? Well, probably not. So our whole models of linear growth, we want to grow more and more and more. How does it match with the world, a planet that has finite resources, and resources that sometimes take 400,000 years to be renewed? Well, both and thinking, well, we are so used in our polarized world, it's either or. And for some, it's either planet or profit. For others, it's either I do it or I get fired. For others, it's, well, should I talk about this or should I stay silent? And what happens if I stay silent with this? So we, in unpolarized, we see it in politics every day, in all our social issues. It's all about polarization, and how do we bridge this? Starting to develop the both and thinking. Big challenge for our time. Interconnectedness, how are we all interconnected as opposed to fragmented individual autonomous beings, which is what we were taught. Oh, you will be an independent woman. Well, I don't think I can do a single thing on my own without relying on the coffee growers to start with my coffee. Emotional intelligence. I go very quickly over this because I just want to give you a breath of how wide we can think of that. Then you can go in depth as you want. There are three aspects related to three principles related to emotional intelligence. One is called reflection, the other is self-awareness, and the other creative innovation. Reflection is very much connected with noticing first what is our natural pace, our speed, because to reflect we need to pause. There's no way around that. We cannot reflect in the run. And when the waters are calm, we can look inside and see our reflection, right? When there are turbulent waters, we don't see anything. So how are we making these little moments, these little pauses, so that we can stand back and say, what am I doing anyway? Why am I doing this? Self-awareness, particularly related, what are the anchors of my identity? And many of these anchors are unscrutinized and inherited, because my dad told me that I should be an independent woman, so I'm acting on it. Well, wait a moment, what does independence mean if I really have to be grateful to so many people that are enabling for me to be with you here today in the Zoom call? Oh my God, and how are my decisions taking into account this gratefulness and this deep interconnectedness of threads that we don't see? But if someone would cut them off, we would notice, well, something is wrong. The first thing, I would have no sound, and then no video, and then you're not there, and then I'm not even sitting on my chair. So how are we reviewing these anchors of our identity? What is it based on, and which ones are anchoring us in unsustainable ways of being? And creative innovation, because There is a lot of shyness about creativity, and many times I hear saying, oh, I'm not a creative person. That's my sister who's an artist. But we need to reinvent everything. If you look around the room, we need to reinvent basically everything. So we need to unleash our creativity and discover it, that we have it already there. It's granted by birth, because at the age of 4, we were all doing drawings without thinking that we were not creative. I mean, that's how we do it, right? So we need to get rid of some of these limiting beliefs. The last one, I will go very quickly over that. This is called spiritual intelligence. And it has 3 principles, but I want to focus on this image of the Ikigai that some of you may know. And it's such a wonderful model to think, how am I choosing to show up in the world with my gifts, with what I'm good at, maybe the connection, the intersection of my passion, but also what I can get paid for or make a living, or what the world needs and what I love. And in this intersection, what is my Ikigai zone where I can be the best? And if you start finding it in yourself, that is what you will be sharing and bringing to your students, because we can only teach, as I heard yesterday, what is overflowing from us. We teach what we are, who we are. That is what we bring to the party. That is what we offer to our students. It's not the knowledge, it's who we are. And that comes through our words and our interactions. So the future, when we talk about the future, it is really being shaped today. So all our concerns, how we're preparing our students for the future, well, what is it that they can do today, and what is it something that we can do today? Because we have these 3 leverage points that they are bringing. They are much more aware of the urgency. They don't know what to do. They are more aware that they can protest, which is blaming, right? And so we have to acknowledge that and also bring it back to our scope of what is something that we can do, I can do, and help them review those values. And that revision calls for what I mentioned before as a contemplative pedagogy, where it is about reflecting this, what of what you're saying resonates with you, what of what I'm saying resonates with you, and what are you leaning away, because that also gives you information. If you say, well, I don't like what she's saying, that is information for you. Information. Why is it that I'm not liking it? There is a message for me there. I need to analyze this further. And in things that resonate with me, how am I maximizing them already and bringing them to my work? And I want to do a little play moment with you, because it is very common to think, well, problems are so big. What is it that I can do? I as an educator, or I as a student, I'm only 17 years old. What can I do? We always have these questions, very real, because problems are big. So I invite you to do this thought experiment. Think of a moment of a person that meant a lot to who you are today, in a good way. But, and here's the condition, that person doesn't know how much she or he meant for you. And she doesn't know it because you never told him or her, or maybe you never met that person. Maybe it is someone that you heard about, the uncle of a friend, or maybe it's someone that you never met because the person died. Maybe it was Gandhi, someone in another country you read about. But that person in some way meant a lot to who you are today. So I will be silent so you can connect with your thought. I'll give you 1 minute to find one. And we will not share it. This is just for you. Okay, everybody has one. Put your thumb up or your little hand in the screen so we know that you have found one. Yes, we got a few. Okay. Okay, I think, and if you haven't found it yet, that's homework for you. So the reason that I wanted to do this little exercise is because when you do it, doesn't it make you think, I wonder who doing this exercise would think of me? People that I maybe mean a lot for who they are today, and I will never know, or I haven't heard yet, and I may never meet them. Maybe you can only guess. Siblings, students that left the classroom, colleagues, neighbors, someone in the bus, who knows? That is a wonderful example of what our area of influence is and how wide it goes to shores that we will never be able to explore. We will never know. There's no way for us to know. However, that doesn't mean that our daily interactions, things that we do, things that we say, may be leaving these little marks, just coming just in time for someone to say, you know what, this really made me think. So that is our area of influence. And where we get dismayed, where we feel powerless and depressed and anxious is when we think of our area of control. That may be small, because we don't run governments or corporations or universities or neighborhood committees. Our area of control is small. However, our area of influence, we don't know how big it is. So that means that with every interaction, every conversation, everything that we write, blog, who knows, tweet, in the classroom, all of these little moments may be creating these seeds of inspiration for people we will never know. And so now you have learned an exercise that's very simple. You can do it anytime with your students, and it's so fast, and you don't even have to do much of exchange, so it stays very private. Although you can, if you have the time, people can exchange and have conversations about that. But the point is not who you found. The point is that there are people like that they don't even know. So maybe now you go and write a letter or send an email to someone, say, I need to tell you. You may not know that. That's good. But if not, even if you don't do that, it's wonderful to empower ourselves and realize how far our impacts go. So I want to take a moment now before we rush into another session or another activity. Let's create this little space, a buffer space where you can think, what is one thought or one insight that came to you as a result of this monologue that I had for the last 40 minutes? And you can write it into your journal, you can write it into the chat. Actually, you can do both. If you feel like putting it to the chat, it's nice, and we can all read and benefit of it. Very interesting. Thank you very much for sharing. I want to put on the screen a few resources. Yes, Kathy mentioned some of the books. There is a action lab for educators, which is a course in 4 sessions. There's a resource workbook with exercises to develop particularly these different aspects, whether it's from the cognitive side, the behavioral, or the affective. There's also a series of workbooks for coaches. There's a new program for sustainability mindset for coaches now. There's a community of practice with PRME, the working group on the sustainability mindset, where Kathy and Karen are members, and you're very welcome to find out more. Contact me. Here's my email address. And there's an indicator. It's called the Sustainability Mindset Indicator, which is a personal development tool and also research instrument that maps and profiles where an individual is on their journey of developing their mindset. So let me stop sharing here so I can see you all.
Thank you so much, Isabel. Thank you. Yeah, very, very powerful, and yes, a lot for us to all think about. So thank you so much. That was really fascinating and inspiring. So yeah, you've got some little rounds of applause there. So yes, and thank you also for sharing your email at the end there. I wonder whether we've slightly run out of time, and that's absolutely fine. And I wonder if if people did, if we could take perhaps maybe one question. Has any? So sure. Hannah has shot her hand up immediately. She wants to be that one question. So we'll take the one question and then we'll have to finish there. So Hannah, over to you.
Thank you very much for giving me the space for my one question. Yeah, so I want to really kind of commend and promote, I suppose, the idea of that visualization. I just think it's so powerful. It's something I bring into my teaching generally, in terms of seeing the student future, but I haven't applied it in this context. So I just want to kind of reiterate that. And if I can maybe dare to challenge one of the points that you raised, which is the idea of where the responsibility should lie. Of course, we all need to take personal responsibility, but I think when it comes to where the power actually lies, the power, I think, does very much lie with government, and it does lie with industry. They're the ones that have the power to create the system so that we can make sustainable choices, so that we can travel in sustainable ways, so that we can reuse and go about our daily lives in a way that doesn't create waste, so that we don't have to buy a new washing machine every 5 years because it's become obsolete, or we don't have to change our phones every 2 years. We can't make those decisions. Industry and government can make those decisions. So when it comes to empowerment, I wonder if another way of looking at it is actually the university, that we all work for universities. The university itself needs to take some responsibility for advocacy and political pressure, politics. That's what the word that we're all trying to avoid saying. But I don't think it should be a taboo subject. I think students and staff and the university should be empowered to lobby governments so that we have the capacity to live our lives in sustainable ways and make these sustainable choices. So I just wanted to know your thoughts on that.
Thank you very much.